It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA. Here's Kevin Doran.
It's Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran today. Kevin Doran has a cold, and we're filling in with Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray and Hornell Police Investigator Tom Aini as our guests today. Police Chief Murray, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, great being here.
Investigator Aini, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
You know, a lot of drug arrests in Hornell lately. Wondering, can we expect to see more in the coming weeks?
Absolutely. We still have more sealed indictments that are going to be leading to more arrests.
Chief Murray.
Yeah, I don't think that we've gotten everyone yet that we actually had with the initial investigation. But beyond that, I mean, we've gotten a whole lot more information and tips that have been developed through the arrest process that we've done. So
I don't know if you can tell something like this, but is there any way to gauge, does drug activity slow down a little bit when there's a lot of arrests?
Yes.
How can you tell?
Well, people are going to rehab. When we're looking for people, we find out that they've gone to rehab. So the absence of drugs in their life.
So the rehab centers get a little bit more filled up after a big...
We do monitor that, and that's one of the things that Investigator Arnie does is to take a look at the rehab centers and take a look at what activities are taking place there. And it does kind of give us an idea of, hey, people are actually getting treatment now as opposed to trying to get drugs on the street. So we do take a look at that. They don't give us names, obviously.
Sure.
But when we can look at numbers, that kind of gives us an idea of how effective our drug operations have been.
What kind of drugs were being sold in the Hornell area?
Well, we had an assortment. There's a lot of cocaine in this particular investigation that we were buying. A lot of prescription type pills. Was Vicodin mentioned by the DAs during that press conference there a couple of weeks ago?
Yes. Vicodin's a painkiller. That was some of the substance that was recovered as a result of undercover drug operations.
Can you tell us the average age of the Vicodin users? Kind of interested in that.
I don't think it's you can isolate it to a specific age group. It is prescribed to a wide range of people, and those people may opt to sell it and divert it illegally to other users.
Do even teens get into drugs like Vicodin?
Possibly. We've had that information. In this particular last drug sweep, no, that was not the case.
How would the teens know about something like Vicodin? You know, you think of an older person, 45 and older, getting into pain medicine, you know, as prescribed by a doctor because they start to have the aches and pains. How would a teenager even think about a painkiller?
Possibly from peer pressure, talk at school, interacting with other older adults.
Chief, what's your thoughts of the teens getting into the painkiller world?
We certainly don't want that to happen. It's certainly it's a dangerous situation, and as Investigator Annie said, we're trying to target people that are distributing, so that the teens don't get their hands on these drugs.
This question is for Investigator Tom Aini. Do you think that the drug users and dealers know how addictive and dangerous crack cocaine is?
Yes, some of them, dealer-wise, yes, I'm sure they do. They do know that. The people that are users, of course, it's difficult for them to say that they are addicted sometimes.
Do you have a sense of how many of the dealers are users too, who are trying to keep their habit going versus a dealer who's just in it for the money and doesn't use drugs at all?
There is people that deal for their own habit. Yes, that does go on. Then there's other dealers that don't use narcotic drugs, and they strictly distribute to people that use them.
Even in our area, you get dealers who are not users?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's scary. I think the local people that we're kind of dealing with are probably more people that are have a habit, and they're trying to support the habit through sales.
Is this something that starts in someone's teens?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we do see a lot of people that may have a physical condition that they go to a doctor and they get prescriptions, and they end up addicted to the particular drugs that the doctors are giving, and because they abuse them, they may not be available to them anymore, and then they turn towards street drugs in order to get the same effect. So in this particular investigation, we were arresting people from their mid-20s. We had a person that was 60 years old that was arrested. So it had quite a rainbow of ages throughout it.
Do you get a sense, and this question is for either of you, do you have a sense, Chief Murray or Investigator Iene, that people who use bath salts understand the problems that they're going to be getting into medically when they start using these?
Probably not. Bath salts it's something that's a very dangerous drug. It's bought generally from an Asian country, and as far as the contents of what's going to be in it, the person that's buying it really doesn't know. They're not FDA approved, obviously. So what you're getting through the mail, we don't really know what it is that the person is actually consuming or what we're getting on the streets until we send it to a lab and find out what the contents of it are.
And that was something that Brooks Baker, the Steuben County District Attorney, mentioned, that it's a little trickier these days to send things off to labs when you're dealing with a bath salts type arrest, because the drugs are a little bit ahead of the technology in terms of determining what it is. Do you find that to be the case?
Yes. Some of the chemical compounds in the drugs, some of them are illegal, some of them aren't illegal. And it's chemically easy for the manufacturers to alter those components by adding or deleting something in that particular substance.
They're generally all analogs of the same type of drug, but their molecules are changed just a little bit, so the chemical makeup isn't the same in each vat, so they can actually stay ahead of the law is basically what they do.
Okay. We're talking with Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray and Hornell Police Investigator Tom Iene. And we're talking about the recent drug arrests. Of course, we can't get into any specifics here, obviously, because these are suspects and they have their rights. But if we could talk a little bit about the law enforcement interaction. There was a lot of agencies involved in those arrests. Do you find... Is it just my news department, or does it seem like there's a lot more interaction between the law enforcement agencies recently?
Right. In this particular area, it has been. Within the last, I'm going to say, year, the district attorney's office has they brought on a couple of investigators who have worked closely with our investigations, and it really has brought more onto the table and given us more abilities out in the field. So yeah, there's been a real cooperative effort between us and the district attorney's office and other agencies that cooperate along with that same type of, it's not really a task force, but it's an accumulative of resources that are pulled together, including our department, the state police, the sheriff's department, and the district attorney's office. So it's worked well for us over the last year. Guessing
that some of the tips that you get come from the Steuben County's sheriff's department's tip lines. Some of the tips are coming into 324-2860, the Hornell Police phone number. Some of the tips are just people stopping into the police station or seeing an officer and giving them a little information.
That's right. Also, we look at all the criminal complaints and all the non-criminal complaints that come into the police department to monitor activity late at night, where are people gathering, and what kind of conduct is going on at those locations.
We're talking with Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray and Hornell Police Investigator Tom Iene. The focus of today's interview is on the recent drug arrest. We're staying off the suspects and the individuals and the personalities, but we're talking about the drugs and how these the effects of the drugs and the arrest and what goes into the arrest and the investigation. We'll be back on the Newsmaker Show in just a moment. Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Dorn, who is a cold today. It's the Newsmaker Show. Our guests are Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray and Hornell Police Investigator Tom Iene. Marijuana has been described as a gateway drug to the other kinds of drugs that we've been talking about, cocaine, crack, cocaine, Vicodin, and bath salts. Those who are opposed to legalizing marijuana say that medical marijuana is a step towards legalizing all marijuana. Do either of you have any thoughts on that you'd like to share?
Well, my personal thoughts is that I wouldn't want to see that happen. If it has a medical purpose, I certainly don't want to see someone go without treatment if there is a legitimate medical purpose for it. But beyond that, I don't think that it really serves a positive purpose in society.
Norm McCumsky and the Council of Addictions, the Steuben County Council of Addictions, has been very outspoken and said similar things to what you just said there, Chief Murray, that he believes that it's a serious problem to be working towards legalizing marijuana. And many opponents of legalizing marijuana say that the people who want medical marijuana will falsely claim that they are suffering from a certain ailment in order to get a certain type of medical marijuana. That's often been mentioned. Back to the investigation part. Is there anything you can tell us about the investigation, Investigator Tom Haney? Is there anything you could tell us about the investigation, obviously without compromising the upcoming court case, about how you work together with the different law enforcement agencies? I think it was, the Hornell Police Department, State Police, the Steuben County Sheriff's Department, Canisteo Police, Corning Police. Did I mention State Police? There was a lot of agencies there. How did the interaction work between the various agencies?
It's pooling information, and they have phones too, and they get complaints too, and it's comparing a lot of notes.
So you say, okay, we got a complaint about this person here over on this street in this city, and you kind of share the different tips that have been coming in?
Yes, the people just don't stay here in the city of Hornell. They go to other locations too.
One of the suspects was from Rochester. Do you find it common to have Corning or Rochester suspects stopping into town for the purpose of drug sales, illegal drug sales?
Doesn't surprise me. They're very mobile. They are looking. People that are selling drugs are looking for a customer base.
Is it easy to pick them out if you're driving? Because the Hornell Police Department has regular patrols. Let's say you look at a plate and license plate, and you look at the car dealer's name, and you see that it's not one of the usual out-of-town dealership plates that you'd see on a license plate, or there's something that stands out about the car. Does that kind of thing happen?
Yes, we see people that we don't recognize. Our patrols are out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and if in a specific area they see somebody new, they normally stand out to the officer.
Is there a typical profile of the drug suspect, or do they come from all kinds of backgrounds?
Yeah, I think they come from all backgrounds. I think it's important for us in law enforcement too not to just be stereotypical and say, hey, this particular person in this particular car, there has to be drug activity. I mean, we're beyond that. And
when you see a rusty car that it snows a lot in Hornell over the winter.
Absolutely, and we certainly don't want to be out there just stopping people because we may feel that they're doing something too. It's a little beyond that our officers are doing.
When someone gets arrested for something like this, that it can be a life-changing experience. Is that often the case where they're like, okay, rock bottom, we're at the rock bottom point, got to get off this stuff, or the family sits them down and said, we bailed you out enough times and now you're in real trouble?
For some people, yes. You most likely we're dealing with B felonies. They're very serious crimes, and they're prosecuted very seriously by Brooks Baker.
As far as discouraging people from either getting into the addiction life or getting out of it, if someone was listening to this, and I think the typical rationalizing thought is, I can do this one more time, or it's not going to happen to me this time. I'll quit next time. I suppose you'd have to say to somebody like that, how do you know that this time is the time that you won't be nailed?
Well, all I can really say in regards to that is that, we are blessed really with the police department that we have. With the officers that I have under me, they're great. I mean, our night patrol is fantastic. Investigator Aney should take a lot of credit for the job that he does. He does a fantastic job. We're constantly working on drug cases. We're constantly trying to look at areas that we can improve our drug investigations, and we will continue to work with other agencies, and we will continue to make arrests in the drug field if necessary. But I would encourage anyone who has a drug problem to get help before it gets to the point where they're going through the criminal justice system. We would much rather have people go to the hospital or whatever they need. And if someone needs help, if they want to come to the police department, we'll certainly direct you on where to go. We're not interested in so much in arresting people as we are changing people's lives in that positive manner.
They talk about the addictive personality or the addict's personality being very manipulative and being able to guilt trip or talk the people around them, friends and family, into preventing them from being stopped using drugs or alcohol or whatever they're into. Do you find that the addicts try to play those sorts of manipulation games with an arresting officer?
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There's always tomorrow, and people that get involved in drugs and alcohol and the dependency on a multitude of drugs, they have their ways of keeping themselves going. And it's by lying, it's by stealing, committing crimes, and they always think in terms, well, let's just get by for today. They don't think about tomorrow, and that the people that they hurt in the process.
Do they have kind of a line? You think of the old line of the person going 100 miles an hour saying, "Why aren't you out catching drug dealers?" Do the drug suspects, either dealers or users, is there a common line that they use? Why are you bothering poor me, or something like that?
Not necessarily. They usually try to evade the police by some means.
Do you see them running out the back door and
sometimes
that sort of thing a lot? Yeah.
Out a window.
Do you think at the end of the day that you mentioned, Chief, we're not as naive as to think that the arrests, and you said this at the press conference, we're not as naive as to think that this is going to stop all drugs in the Hornell area. But do you think at the end of the day that this puts a little bit of fear when they see over a dozen people getting arrested, and do you think that might discourage the drug use a little bit, or drug dealing a little bit?
We're certainly hoping so, and that's our goal is to stop the sales of these hard drugs and to discourage people from using them.
Okay. Hornell Police Chief Ted Murray, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Hornell Police Investigator Tom Ianni, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And thanks for all the great work you do.
Thank you very much.